Right now, GOP battle for Texas Attorney General as the campaign for the crucial primary runoff May 26. Both Congressman Chip Roy and State Senator Mays Middleton tell us why they are the fighters Republicans want for a new AG. Sounding the alarm why Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says a lack of unity this fall could cost Republicans the U.S. Senate seat in Texas. And Texas-sized bond package, Dallas ISD hopes voters will approve its $6.2 billion bond package, while the campaign co-chair says the long list of improvements are worth the cost. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts now. Hello and happy Sunday to you. Hope you're having a great weekend. While the Texas GOP Senate race is still the biggest prize in the May 26 runoff, there is another statewide seat up for grabs that's generating a lot of buzz and soon a lot of TV ads. We're talking about the race for Texas Attorney General in both parties. This morning, we're going to focus on the Republican primary runoff for AG between State Senator Mays Middleton and Central Texas Congressman Chip Roy. It's a very contentious battle. They emerged from the March 3rd primary, finishing in the top two. Middleton also received the endorsement from another Republican candidate, Aaron Reitz. We spoke with Middleton one-on-one about the results and the campaign to win next month.
The reason why he did so badly on Election Day is because his record of fighting President Trump caught up to him. And you know, it's funny when politicians like Chip and Liz Cheney are surprised all of a sudden when that record catches up to them and haunts them. And look, he said that President Trump needed to be impeached. He said that Liz Cheney needed to be commended and not condemned. He spent a career fighting against the MAGA agenda. And not only that, you know, he sided with the radical transgender lobby and Gavin Newsom to allow those surgeries on children. Evil surgeries is what they are. Even fought to certify a stolen election. And the list goes on. Texas is Trump country, right? They want a conservative fighter that will back up the president and make sure that we use every resource and tool to advance his conservative agenda in Texas. And not just that, put Texas first and defeat the left. That's the goal in this office. That is always number one.
When President Trump was here in Corpus Christi right before March 3rd, he gave a shout out to Congressman Roy. Did that surprise you?
You always have to look at Chip Roy's record, right? He's retreating from Washington, D.C. He's treating Texas like a backup plan. He's also a lawmaker who can't really show us any laws that he's made. So that's a real problem. And this is about results as well. Proven conservative results. That is the distinction in this race. You know, Aaron Reitz, one of my opponents in the primary, he endorsed me the other day. And the reason why he did, he said three things. Number one, he said, I know Mays Middleton will back up the president. Number two, I know that he will fight the left. And number three, I know that he will defend Texas at all costs.
Chip Roy said, quote, "You're a trust fund kid who has never been in a courtroom, never practiced law, never prosecuted a bad guy, never been in the AG's office." Basically implying that you're not qualified. What's your response to that?
Well, number one, I am a practicing attorney in oil and gas law. And this is Texas, by the way, Jack. So I think it's ridiculous for someone to say that practicing oil and gas law in Texas is not practicing law. And going back to, you know, how Ken Paxton got elected, right? In 2013, the reason why we supported him for Attorney General was not because he was a civil attorney like me. It was because he was a proven conservative in the Texas Senate, top one or two most conservative members. That's why we supported him. That's what this is about, is that proven conservative record. And Chip's a DC insider, right? He's retreating from DC. He brought millions of dollars from his federal account into his state campaign for Attorney General. And look, Macy and I, we're putting our money where our mouth is here. We've invested a lot in the conservative movement in Texas, helping other conservatives get elected, advancing conservative values across the state. And I can't be bought or rented. The left, the swamp, they can't get to me. And like our president, this is a calling for me. This is not a job. I reject the salary. I reject the pension. I reject the health care. I don't take the state license plate. I don't take the lobbyist NFL tickets. I don't take the lobbyist ski trips. I take nothing from this job. I'm only here to serve and fight for the conservative values that we believe in.
And that won't change if you're elected.
That will never change.
And the money that you said you're putting your money where your mouth is, reports show it's up to $15 million. Is that right?
I'm going to do what it takes to win this race.
And more money if necessary.
We will do what it takes, and I will earn every vote.
The last topic I wanted to ask you about is the school choice program here in Texas. There's been these challenges from Islamic private schools, et cetera, and the state has approved some of these schools. And I know there's been a lot of concerns about tax dollars going to that. Where are you on this whole issue?
But we should not be approving these Islamic schools in the school choice program.
At all?
At all. They should not be in there, not one of them. It is incompatible with Texas, with our constitutional republic, with our God-granted freedoms. This is something that is un-Texan and un-American.
But how do you defend that position if they're, it's based on freedom of religion, you're treating one differently than another? Can you discriminate that, and how does that hold up in court?
Because many of them have ties with these nonprofits, these NGOs like Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, right? Those were designated as terrorist organizations because the laws that I fought for to pass, SB 17 was one of them, right? That allows the governor to name them. And of course, those groups, they're going to change their name, right? They're going to be other ones. They're going to pop up. They're going to spring up. And that's where the power of the AG's office comes in to investigate them. And I will treat Sharia law as organized crime, period. That's what I'll do in the AG's office. And I will make sure that that is enforced.
We also spoke with Central Texas Congressman Chip Roy about how he's planning to win.
The message has been very clear. You can choose someone who has been in a courtroom, who's been a prosecutor, who's practiced law, who's been the first assistant attorney general, or you can try to hire somebody for on-the-job training who's never actually practiced law and has never done the job. For the most part, he's managed his family business, which means really administering royalties that he inherited from his family. And that's not somebody that is prepared to be the Attorney General of the state of Texas. We have enormously important issues. It is an enormous law firm, the biggest law firm in the state. I know it well. Having served as the first Assistant Attorney General, I know how it operates. I know what to do on day one because I've done it.
I want to run by you some of the things that no doubt you've heard Mays Middleton say about you.
Sure.
Okay. He accuses you of saying President Trump needed to be impeached. President Trump needed to be impeached. He said that you said Liz Cheney needed to be commended, not condemned. He says you spent a career fighting against the MAGA agenda, and you sided with the radical transgender lobby and Gavin Newsom to allow those surgeries on children, and that you fought to certify a stolen election in 2020.
Each one of those claims is either an outright lie or intentionally misleading. Let's go through them. If you look at the issue with respect to impeachment, I fought both impeachments of President Trump vigorously, voted against both impeachments of President Trump. On the issue of Liz Cheney, we were working through at the time the votes of what was necessary with respect to the conference chair. We didn't have the votes to remove Liz Cheney. I worked with the speaker. We figured out what the best path was. How do we unite? So we basically made an arrangement. Let's all unite. We'll support Liz right now in order to try to move the conference forward. But if she looks backwards and attacks the president, then we'll unite to call for her to step down. 2 weeks later, she was, criticizing the president. I was the first to step out, go to the steps of the House, and say Liz had to go. The speaker followed, and then it took about a month and a half to still build the coalition to change the conference chair. That's what you have to do when you're actually in the arena. Let's take the transgender issue. As Attorney General, my job is to defend the people of Texas. As a member of Congress, I'm supposed to advance good policy. We're all united in wanting to end these absurd and abhorrent procedures on children and this transgender procedures that are destroying children's lives. I'm supported by, endorsed by Chloe Cole, one of the lead advocates for stopping these procedures. I held one of the biggest and most important hearings in the Judiciary Committee on this issue. I've supported legislation, but I had a disagreement on how we handled the legislation in December to try to move it through the Senate and focus it on a spending bill so we could move it that way rather than the approach that was taken.
Just on the certification of the 2020 election, he still calls that a stolen election.
Well, I've been very clear about, at the time, in November of 2020, how much fraud there was in the election, that there was demonstrable fraud and that we needed to prove it, and worked very hard as, frankly, leaked text showed in my engagement with then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. We were trying to get the information, the evidence, and my goal was to say, look, if a state can demonstrate that, let's then have a different slate of electors, right? Let's show that the election hung in the balance and that a state would send us a different slate of electors. We never got there by January 6th. And so my view was we had to vote for the electors that were in front of us. I think that's what the Constitution said.
The school choice program, education freedom accounts. And there has been a legal battle in place. A judge, though, said that Islamic schools have to be able to take part in them. And, if people want to go to these Islamic private schools, they should be able to, like every other religious entity. Where are you on that issue?
At its core, Islam is a political ideology. And so when you've got things being taught in schools that are counter to our rule of law, that undermine Western civilization, and that, frankly, are against our interests as Texas and America. Again, not like a freedom of speech issue that you have the right to say something, but you're now taking taxpayer dollars to advance something, to say that you're going to advance Sharia law, for example, that is inconsistent with Texas law, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Then the governor is right to say that Texas taxpayer dollars shouldn't be going to fund that. So that's obviously the debate. The courts are now going to go look through that and go back and forth on balancing the interest of the First Amendment ability for religious expression. As Attorney General, I would draw that bright line. I would fight alongside the governor to ensure that we were trying to defend taxpayers funding only schools that are going to support, embrace, and fully follow Texas laws.
Next week, we'll hear from the two Democrats in the primary runoff for Attorney General, former Galveston Mayor Joe Jaworski and State Senator Nathan Johnson of Dallas. Still to come, Dallas ISD is hoping its voters will pass a record bond package valued at $6.2 billion. Why the campaign co-chair tells us it's worth the cost when Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas comes back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to the bond election being held early next month by Dallas ISD. It's valued at more than $6.2 billion, a record amount in the state of Texas. If voters approve, they will agree to raise their property tax rate by 1 cent. Among the 4 propositions on the ballot, the bond would build 26 brand new schools, renovate and modernize all campuses, remove the 700 remaining portable classrooms, and upgrade security. Early voting for this and other municipal elections runs between Monday, April 20th through Tuesday, April 28th. Election Day is Saturday, May 2nd. We spoke with the Dallas ISD bond campaign co-chair and former school board trustee, Miguel Solis.
Kids getting a high-quality education and high-quality facilities will inevitably lead to better economic outlook, because more kids will then be getting better grades that lead to better jobs and maximizes their earning potential. But the
workforce.
This is a workforce play as much as it is anything else. Now, let's take the size of the bond package for a second, because yeah, $6.2 billion, your eyes start to open up, but let's contextualize that. There are 135,000 students in Dallas ISD. That number alone is larger than most Texas cities outside of Dallas. When you really look at the population of our students, we're trying to finance the infrastructure of a very large subset of students. The district is just big.
Now, this is going to come at a cost, right? Because it is going to, people are going to pay an increase. I mean, it's 1 cent on the tax rate, right? So, I mean, this comes at a time of affordability is a very big issue. Property taxes are high, as we know. The state has tried to bring school property taxes down. So what's your argument? Why is this well worth it?
Anytime we're talking about people's taxes, that is a conversation that you have to take extremely seriously. Dallas ISD has indeed done just that. It's also important to take a step back first before we even get to a 1 cent tax increase. the 2015 bond and the 2020 bond, both of those were at zero tax increase. And as a result of that and the financial stewardship of the district, the actual tax rate in Dallas ISD since 2019 has gone down. Dallas ISD, when you look at the 10 largest districts in North Texas, it's actually got the lowest tax rate. What you didn't hear me say is taxpayers may feel that low tax rate. That's because property tax values are rising. But Dallas ISD has been lowering the tax rate over the course of that time. That only gets the district, though, so far. To be able to ensure once and for all that every student and every school across Dallas ISD can have physical infrastructure improvements, this bond will allow the district to do just that. So what does 1 cent actually mean? To the average voter, to the average homeowner, that's probably about $2.79. That's a month. That's roughly $33 over the course of the year. If you're 65 and up with homestead, it's essentially still $0. The average cup of a coffee today in America is a little more than $3. So Dallas ISD is saying we think that voters, recognizing the improvements in Dallas ISD, are going to be willing to make that investment, because that investment is a positive investment for today and for tomorrow.
What about the district's debt? I was reading the Texas Public Policy Foundation says if this is approved, it could double the district's debt. Is that true?
When you look at long-term debt, you go back again to 2015. Anytime you issue a bond, you're essentially issuing debt. And that debt can extend out over the course of multiple years. The 2015 bonds, over the course of, I'd like to think, maybe the next 5 or 10 years, we will probably see that debt ultimately paid off. The 2020 bond, that debt will extend, and the 2026 bond will extend it even more, but at a rate, again, that Dallas ISD feels pretty confident it has the ability to be able to manage. And it should be noted that they have managed pretty well the debt that has been issued all the way back to 2015.
Up next, the warning by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick for Texas Republicans. Why he says a lack of unity this fall could help Democrat James Tallarico win the U.S. Senate seat. When Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas returns.
Get over it. Get over it and come together as one.
That's Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick sounding the alarm. He warned Texas Republicans that if they don't unite this November behind their winning nominee for U.S. Senate, either Senator John Cornyn or Attorney General Ken Paxton, they risk handing the seat over to Democrat James Tallarico. Patrick spoke before the Texas Public Policy Foundation, a conservative think tank in Austin.
So, folks, this is real.
The lieutenant governor called out Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton, who are battling each other to win the Republican primary runoff on May 26th.
We have one nasty race, and I'm just going to call it for what it is, for the U.S. Senate, and it troubles me. And I'm not blaming Cornyn, I'm not blaming Paxton. I can blame both of them. But I wish they'd spend the next 5 weeks or 6 weeks, quite frankly, running positive ads on why they should be elected, because it's not helping our party by tearing each other apart.
Patrick then challenged the Republican heavyweights to unite the party immediately after the runoff.
John Cornyn, if you lose, you need to endorse Ken Paxton and get your voters to support Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton, if you lose, you need to endorse John Cornyn and get your voters to support John Cornyn. Because if 10 to 15% of either of their sides don't turn out and vote, James Tallarico is going to win.
Regardless of whether Cornyn or Paxton wins, Republicans are still favored to hold on to the Senate seat over the well-funded Democrat James Tallarico.
So he can't get to over 50 unless Cornyn's people or Paxton's people decide to skip the race because they're mad that their guy lost. Get over it. Get over it and come together as one.
Paxton's campaign didn't respond to our request for comment. Cornyn's campaign told me they are executing a plan to win the runoff. After years of having young men voluntarily register for military service, it will soon happen automatically. Sarah Jenkins explains in this week's brief.
Starting in December, men ages 18 to 25 will be registered with the Selective Service System without having to sign up themselves. The change was included in the annual defense policy bill that Congress passed and signed into law late last year. Women are still exempt from registering for the draft. Registration is already required by law, and failure to sign up can carry penalties. The U.S. hasn't activated the draft since 1973 during the Vietnam War and has relied on volunteers ever since. Most states already use some form of automatic registration. Federal officials are now moving to expand that practice nationwide. Officials say the change is not tied to any current conflict, including Iran. The measure had bipartisan support months before those developments. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
Thank you, Sarah. And you can watch all our full interviews from today's show on our CBS Texas YouTube page. All you have to do is look for the Eye on Politics playlist and kindly hit the subscribe button while you're there to make it easy for yourself. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. And from all of us here, have a great weekend.